Firstly, good morning, everyone. It's good to see all of you here and really welcome the panel. I'm sort of humbled and honored to be sort of moderating this wonderful panel, and obviously the speakers don't need introduction. You can always scan the QR code to know more about the speakers. I think a lot has been spoken for this topic, in the previous sessions, which I think is a good segue in this discussion. So I'm going to keep it a bit of Hindi and English just to make sure that we are both taking the views of the panelists and also the audience. The topic is, are we creating future ready teachers? बहुत ही broad level topic है, but I think बहुत सारे insights आएंगे. थोड़े insights already आ चुके थे in the previous sort of discussions that we had, because they touched upon teachers being the cornerstone. I myself, being an engineer turned teacher, oftentimes thought about what is the role of teachers. So one of the very inspiring quotes which I wanted to start off was by Rita Pearson, who's been an educator for many years. उनका एक TED talk है, which talks about every child deserves a champion. An adult who will give up on them, who won't give up on them, who understands the power of connection and insists they become the best that they possibly can be. So there's a lot of element of not just the overall cognitive skills that the teacher is supposed to give, but it goes beyond it. And I think it's evident from some of the things. And I think just the way Lokare madam was able to sort of capture the children at this was very, very special. So I think it's good segue into what we are about to discuss. So I want to start with Padma ma'am. I think obviously this recently launched the whole status of, not recently, but I think it's been a few months, the whole status of teacher education in India. But I want to start with that report, because I think it's good to sort of root this discussion and research in what we are learning. So what did Tata Institute and CET found from this study? What are the top 2 or 3 sort of things that you're seeing positive about the state of teacher education? What are 2 or 3 concerns that we have right now?
I'll show you the report first. Here it is. And I'm really pleased. The exercise of producing this report for the second time has been enormously enriching. And even though I've worked in the sector with teachers for over 30 years, actually studying the status of the profession in India this way has given me a lot of insights that I'm really excited to share here. So a few positives and some of the challenges. We are 9.5 million teachers in India, right, from grade 1 to 12. And the good news is that the profession is stable and growing. This is one of the few sectors where employment continues to grow. And it's growing not only because constantly we need to replace teachers, 10 to 15% a year, which means at least 1 million entering into the workforce every year. But this profession is set to grow because we need to have more teachers as the GER goes up in secondary schools, as we include more art, physical education, and special education teachers in school. There's just going to be more opportunity to work as teachers. So I think it's great that this is a sector of employment which is actually flourishing and growing. But it is also challenging because the sector's growth is primarily only in the private sector. And that sector is growing at almost 1 to 3% a year. Today, 40% of India's teachers are working in private schools. 50% are working in government schools. So we can clearly see, thinking about the profession, about becoming a teacher, we have to factor in the private schooling sector along with the government schooling sector to form holistic policy, because both the sectors actually influence each other. And the aspiration to teach is not only influenced by the possibility of acquiring a government job, but it's also depressed by the possibility that you'll probably end up only in a private school, earning a very, very modest salary. And that really affects aspiration to become a teacher. The working conditions of teachers, so the profession is growing, and that's great news. But the working conditions of teachers in the private schools are a matter of serious concern. They get about 30% to 50% of the salary that a government school teacher gets. It doesn't mean that the government teacher is overpaid. It means that the private school teacher is underpaid. And we should think about that. Also, many of the private school teachers don't get vacation pay. Contractual teachers in the government sector don't get government vacation pay. And it was shocking for me to learn that even government school teachers are not covered by medical insurance. And this is a profession which is so physical, where you have to be out there. And this basic benefit is not provided to government school teachers. So I thought it's something for us to think about. Also, more than 50% of teachers are not working with written contracts. And that again tells you the kind of vulnerability of entering into this profession and working as a teacher. Still, government school teaching is attractive. And while it is perceived widely that we are not attracting talent into the profession does attract talent. If you go to the DIETs, you will find that many very good students from rural areas coming into the teacher education colleges, aspiring and becoming teachers, because still government school teaching is very attractive in rural areas, and many people aspire to be teachers. I feel we don't live up to the expectations that teachers have of the system, rather than teachers not living up to the expectations that we have of them. So the working conditions of teachers are very, very difficult in government schools. We found that working conditions in private schools seem to be better than government schools as far as stability of classroom time, teaching time, having clerical support to carry on with your work. All of these aspects are better supported in private schools as compared to government schools. So clearly the attractiveness of the profession is challenged very much. The last point I want to make is the gender balances within this profession. We find that it's actually a great profession for women. In fact, it's one of the few professions where women are fairly well represented.
Correct.
And this is a remarkable thing about teaching, that it attracts and it's attractive and makes it possible for women to join the workforce. But we also find that there are gender imbalances that should make us stop and think about what's going on within the profession. Why is it that there are so few women physical education teachers? Why is it that early childhood education is almost completely only women? Why is it that there are some states like Tamil Nadu and Punjab where more than 80% of all teachers are women, and there are states like Rajasthan and Bihar where it's barely 40%? Clearly, there is a lot going on within the polity, opportunity, the way the sector is growing, and educational opportunities, which is affecting the gender balance of the profession. And I think it is important for us to think about, because greater gender balance will also improve overall working conditions. And if the profession is seen as a feminized profession, then it is also a profession, unfortunately, which stands the risk of becoming more vulnerable, more casualized, and with greater possibility of unfair working conditions. Finally, I just want to stop at leadership, because that's something that LFE works upon. Even though the profession is so feminized, we find very few women in leadership positions within education.
Yeah.
In fact, even the private schooling sector, which is so dominated by women, we found 71% of teachers were women, but only 37% of school heads in private schools are women. In fact, the ratio is far better in the government schools, where we find many more women leaders within government schools. So I think we should think about that as well. The feminization of the leadership in education system also, I think, teaches us a lot about where the profession is today and what will make it aspirational and its growth.
No, fantastic point. Especially, I was about to say, when you have a profession with so many Anganwadi workers and teachers of women, it's hard to find, like I barely think of secretaries, even women secretaries, and even the ranks of higher officials comes once in like 10 years. So it's hard to find. Absolutely agree. But Subir, coming to you and just speaking about this idea of supporting teachers, and it all comes down to teacher education institutes, right? Like the TEIs, let it be at a district level, you have your diets, DIETs, and your state councils, and you of course have NCRT and other allied institutions at the central government level. And this has been, of course, a pessimistic view has always been, this quote of saying the biggest calamity might be terrorism or floods, but try teachers. That's a saying that if you have bad teachers, a country can go for ruins. And very, very pessimistic view. But I wanted to start off with that view because I think for us to build optimism, we also need to understand the current reality of how we are supporting our teachers. I know you've worked extensively with many diets and SCRTs across India. What's your overall take on this? Like, where does this stop? Like, where do we need to focus on in TEIs? What are some of the key pressing issues?
So, education is a command and control system. And that is one of the big problems that we face. One reasons why teachers don't succeed is because everybody is asked to do the same thing in the same way, with the same material, and deliver the same result. Whereas children are different, schools are different, contexts are different, situations are different. So if we are creating a group of people whose job is to just follow orders, we are not going to get results. Sometime back, this issue was made about, do we have faith in our children? What is the belief that we have that they will learn? We have 95 lakh teachers. Do we have faith that they are going to learn?
Yeah.
Or they have to be ordered and they have to be told and that they have to be scripted and everything has to be decided for them because they can't think for themselves? If that is the approach we have, it's very unlikely that we are going to make a shift unless the process is owned by the person who implements it. And to own it, you have to be able to take some decisions. And therefore, in order to succeed, and what has worked the best in my view is where we create inputs that can be reconstructed according to the context by the implementer. I won't take time on the details, but that's the basic principle, principle that really applies. Another thing that to mention is that like in the teacher education institutions, students are controlled. You have to listen to me, you have to pay attention to me, you have to pass exam or I'll fail you, or whatever. The same continues in the class and we don't see change. When you come to government teachers in particular, they have so much going for their life in the sense that their salary is pretty okay, they have a permanent job. Even if they don't teach well, nothing happens to them. You know what is missing in their life? It's a feeling of success. Success is when children say, sir, we loved your class. We miss you when you're not there. Also, community says, we are happy you're at. This is the only thing that is missing in their lives. And if our teacher education institutions, whether in-service, pre-service, whichever ones, if they can communicate things in such a way that teachers become hero in their children's eyes, that is when teachers change. In our experience, there has been so much work done on teacher change in the country, including performance pay. But in my experience, the only thing that has ever changed teachers is this feeling of success. And the phrase I use for this is when a tiger tastes blood, it doesn't want anything else. How do you get your teachers to taste blood? You can't do it if you're ordering them if they're your employees. You can do it if they're your partners in a joint effort that you're making. That is the only way to make it happen.
Awesome. Thanks, Subir. But and talking about like the governments and TEIs and diets, so I want to ask Neha, madam. Madam, आप तो more than 30 years you've served in teacher education institution. You've retired in SCRT Maharashtra. So you've seen the life cycle की pre-service से लेके in-service तक किस तरीके से teachers होते हैं. सबसे बड़ा सवाल ये उठता है कि क्या हमारे शिक्षक तैयार हैं? आई थिंक द बिगर क्वेश्चन इज़ कि भी हम FLN की बात कर रहे हैं. इनफैक्ट प्रीवियस डिस्कशन में था कि FLN फ्यूचर रेडीनेस भी है, बट आई थिंक द लार्जर क्वेश्चन इज़ कि चलो महाराष्ट्र का कॉन्टेक्स्ट भी ले लिया, क्या हमारे शिक्षक तैयार है? अगर नहीं है तो क्या करना पड़ेगा?
तो महाराष्ट्र के बारे में बोलने के लिए मैं 2 पॉइंट्स पे फोकस करूँगी. एक तो टीचर एजुकेशन, इन सर्विस टीचर एजुकेशन और प्री सर्विस टीचर एजुकेशन इम्प्रूव करने के लिए 2015 से मैं SCRT में हूँ. तो इस 9 साल में अलग अलग क्या इनिशिएटिव्स लिए हैं टू मेक टीचर्स फ्यूचर रेडी, तो ये थोड़ा शेयर करना चाहूँगी. सबसे पहले तो नंद कुमार जी जब प्रिंसिपल सेक्रेटरी थे तो रीस्ट्रक्चरिंग ऑफ SCRT किया गया एंड अलाइड इंस्टीट्यूट्स. तो हमें फ्यूचर रेडी बनने के लिए हमारे स्टेट इंस्टीट्यूट्स और अलाइंड इंस्टीट्यूट्स कैसे स्ट्रेंथन करने हैं, ये पहले सोचा गया. इक्विटी डिपार्टमेंट, CPD डिपार्टमेंट, HRD डिपार्टमेंट ऐसे SCRT में स्थापित हुए. अदर दैन दैट 2015 में प्रगत शैक्षणिक महाराष्ट्र यानी एजुकेशनली प्रोग्रेसिव महाराष्ट्र करने के लिए हमें क्या करना चाहिए, सिस्टमिक चेंजेस क्या करने चाहिए और कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग कैसे करनी चाहिए एक टीचर्स की और टीचर्स को सपोर्ट करने वाले फील्ड ऑफिसर्स की, ये दोनों पॉइंट्स पे फोकस किया गया. तो टीचर कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग के लिए पहले तो टेक सेवी टीचर्स बनने के लिए टेक्नोलॉजी का ट्रेनिंग दिया गया और 2015 से 2017 तक ओवरऑल टोटल महाराष्ट्र में 7,50,000 टीचर्स है 1st to 12th के. उसमें से more than 2 lakh teachers जो है वो टेक से भी हो गए, और यहाँ से शुरुआत हुई कि कुछ वर्चुअल क्लासरूम्स टीचर्स लेने लगे, या जिला परिषद स्कूल्स के टीचर्स भी अलग अलग कंट्रीज़ के साथ, अलग अलग स्टेट्स के साथ वो स्कूल्स में क्या हो रहा है ये टाई अप करने लगे, और कई सारे टीचर्स के ब्लॉग्स और यूट्यूब चैनल्स और टेक्नोलॉजी लेके वो आगे बढ़ने लगे। अदर देन दैट ये सुबीर सर के साथ भी काफ़ी सारे वर्कशॉप महाराष्ट्र स्टेट में हुए, जिसमें महाराष्ट्र स्टेट रिसोर्स ग्रुप तैयार किया गया, और अभी जो NEP बोल रहा है कि एक्सपीरियंशियल लर्निंग पे फोकस करना चाहिए टीचर्स ने, वो कंसेप्ट वहीं से शुरू हुआ जब MSRG डेवलपमेंट शुरू हुआ था। ERAC ये क्लासरूम में कैसे लेके आना है, पहले एक्सपीरियंस, बाद में उस पर रिफ्लेक्शन जो एक्सपीरियंस किया है, फिर उसका एप्लीकेशन रियल लाइफ सिचुएशन में कैसे करना है, और कंसोलिडेशन। तो आज जो हमें लगता है कि एजुकेशन और रियल लाइफ में कुछ गैप आ रहा है, वो जोड़ने के लिए काफ़ी सारे टीचर्स को इन ट्रेनिंग्स के थ्रू कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग की, और साथ में महाराष्ट्र में ये एक अलग से प्रैक्टिस शुरू की कि कुछ भी अगर करना है तो पहले पायलट करेंगे, फिर उसका अपस्केल करेंगे, और फिर यूनिवर्सलाइजेशन। तो ये थोड़ा सेटअप होने लगा स्टेट लेवल पे, और स्टेट की एकेडमिक अथॉरिटी है SCRT, तो उसके जो अलाइड इंस्टीट्यूट्स है उसका डिसेंट्रलाइजेशन भी हुआ, रीजनल एकेडमिक अथॉरिटी। और ये जो हमें टीचर्स को सपोर्ट करना है, इसके लिए अलग अलग कोर्सेज डिज़ाइन किए गए और वर्कशॉप मोड में ये लिए गए, और फिर इसके साथ में एक जो भी कोर्स हम टीचर्स के लिए लेते हैं उसका ही कैप्सूल मोड ऑफिसर्स के लिए लिया गया, और ऑफिसर्स कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग के लिए स्कूल लीडरशिप डेवलपमेंट प्रोग्राम, एजुकेशनल लीडरशिप डेवलपमेंट प्रोग्राम, देन लीड यानी लीडरशिप एनहांसमेंट एंड एकेडमिक डेवलपमेंट प्रोग्राम, KPLP, ऐसे काफ़ी सारे लीडरशिप प्रोग्राम्स लिए गए, जिससे उनको ये दिखाया गया कि टीचर्स को सपोर्ट करना है, उनके पास जाना है तो साहब से साथी बनो, और जो भी ऑफिसर्स है उनका रोल जो है वो फैसिलिटेटर, मेंटर, कोचिंग और काउंसिलर इस रोल में जाए स्कूल में जाए तो, और इस तरीके से टीचर्स को सपोर्ट करने के भी कई सारे तरीके महाराष्ट्र स्टेट में डिज़ाइन किए गए। और थोड़ा इश्यूज़ इसमें जो आते हैं वो ये है कि जब भी कोई वर्कशॉप होता है, ट्रेनिंग होता है, सभी पार्टिसिपेंट्स बोलते हैं बहुत अच्छा हुआ, बहुत कुछ सीखने के मिला, बहुत नया मिला, ये सब होता है, लेकिन ये सस्टेनेबिलिटी ऑफ एनी जो भी स्किल्स हम उनको दे रहे हैं अदर देन नॉलेज, वो होने के लिए जितना एक फॉलोअप चाहिए सिस्टम से, उसमें थोड़ी दिक्कत लगती है। इसलिए सभी चीज़ें ऐसे सस्टेन हुई जैसे नहीं लगता है। काफ़ी सारे ऑर्गेनाइजेशनल डेवलपमेंट वर्कशॉप्स भी लिए गए कि ये जो नए स्ट्रक्चर्स बनाए गए इनमें लिंकेजेस भी ऐसे हो, और फाइनली अल्टीमेटली हम क्या चाहते हैं, एवरी चाइल्ड डिजर्व्स द बेस्ट, और हर एक बच्चा अच्छा सीखे। तो अच्छा सीखने के लिए जो करना है, ये मोमेंटम क्रिएट करने के लिए ये एजुकेशनली प्रोग्रेसिव महाराष्ट्र ये बहुत बड़ा इनिशिएटिव रहा है महाराष्ट्र में। थैंक यू।
राइट मैम, thank you. I think Maharashtra did a lot of work last, I think 10-12 सालों में. But I think the one question, I think to maybe Subir, I can come to you. ये बहुत सारे states कर रहे हैं. I mean कभी-कभी ऐसे भी होता है the situation also कि there's too much happening for teachers, right? अभी central government के trainings होते हैं, the state government trainings हैं, multiple sort of things that are happening around. इतने करने के बावजूद भी the whole issue of education seems to be the issue of universalization. Like we do have pockets of excellence. ऐसे नहीं कि government schools में भी कुछ नहीं हो रहा है, like you don't want to paint it with a broad brush, but you still have those 10%, 20% excellent teachers that are there. But the issue is not those 10-20%. The issue is how do you go to 80, 90, 100%, right? Now, like where are we missing the game? I mean, what is happening so that, because trainings are happening, TLMs पहुँचे नहीं, ऐसे नहीं, governments are spending a lot in ensuring कि हर classroom में TLMs पहुँच जाए. There is ample amount of training, there's technology support, ऊपर से CSRs and non-profits are supporting. So where are we losing this battle? Or first of all, is there a battle you think? If not, where are we losing this battle?
Yes, so everybody knows having all the ingredients is not equal to a good dish at the end. There's a lot more that must happen. And somehow it so happened, especially from the time Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan began, that we focused so much on inputs that there was this norms were set for everything. For example, in teacher training, so many days into so much money is what the training plan. That is not how you plan a training. You plan a training by what is it that teacher will start doing or stop doing after this training, and what do I need to do for this to happen. His second problem is if I give the same input to all, I will get different results. Some will do well and some will not do well. But if I say everybody must work at the same level, then I need to give different levels and kinds of input to different people. So what happens is that the system tends to take the operationally budgeting and administrative wise easier approach of just doing the same for all. It does not, there are ways of overcoming this, but it doesn't do that. When do teachers really change and become better? As Neha ma'am was saying, the workshop can give you good results, but it is when you go back to the class, when you succeed in the class, only then. If you try it out in the class, it doesn't work, no one helps you, you give up and you say this whole thing doesn't help. So for some reason, we have weakened our CRC, BRC system. We never strengthened it. We never gave it that degree of emphasis as we needed to. So we are a case of a whole lot of repeated input with very little outcome. We didn't focus enough on it. It can be done. It's relatively simple and actually quite easy. If I were, for example, the commissioner, I would simply talk to the teachers and say, what are the 3 things you want to improve in the next 5 months? What should we do to support you? And support them, and you will see the change will happen. We have just made it too hard for ourselves by trying to push people into places. It doesn't work. Let teachers lead, you will see change.
Right. Very, obviously don't take, but I think this is obvious. It doesn't come with its own challenges, right? Like it's the ability of but at least the principle you're saying needs to be, Padma, I'm taking that thread on more from an academia standpoint. Now, I know there's been a lot of research around this whole strengthening teacher education. It's the support that you give on the ground that matters also more than, say, just the training or the learning material that's inside the classroom. Now, from an academic standpoint, I know there's a lot of theory around teacher support development, but what, according to you, is working at this age and time, given where our government systems are, where our policies are, where our CRCs, BRCs is, what do you think is actually working now across different geographies?
That's not an academic question.
Yeah. but to prove anything, because as practitioners we will keep trying, but to prove or disprove us is where we look up to you.
It's actually difficult to answer the question of what is working.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
what is not working.
It's much easier to see what isn't working. But I must say that I was pleasantly surprised, and I felt, something may be working, when I saw last year that the central government had decided to resurrect the idea of diets and begin to strengthen them. I felt this is such a relief, that there is some hope that district institutes of education and training can aspire to become centers of excellence, bringing the focus on teachers. And I felt that this part of the system offers potential. In fact, this part of the research study we did, we found concrete evidence that pre-service teacher education conducted in diets is at least 20 to 30% points better than the teachers' education provided in self-financed private colleges. It was stark.
Interesting. Yeah.
And this is in the D-led space, where in fact functioning institutions are so few. And I feel the government's decision to strengthen these institutions is very important. And I feel if anything is working, it is if we make this work. And complete the vision of connecting the diets to the block and the cluster, so that a system of teacher support comes back into place.
Right.
And approach it with the rationality that it needs.
Correct.
I feel the system suffers from lack of trust, lack of patience, and underfunding. And I feel that we must believe in process.
Yeah.
It's not only about giving formulas for people to work, but enabling processes to come into place and auditing the system for process, not only for financial utilization.
Right.
I mean, how often have the minutes of a BRC ever been asked and audited? What goes on in the discussion in the BRC?
Yeah.
Is that discussion actually about cluster school improvement? We should be paying attention to these processes. And really the middle-level functionaries, bringing back the focus on it. The fact that many state governments are now seriously asking the question,
Correct.
how do we strengthen them? I feel there is support and hope in this.
Yeah, and a quick follow-up on the technology piece of it, because I know there's been back and forth around how do you support teachers using technology? Is there tutoring and coaching that can be done through, generative AI? A lot of experiments being done. So what is your take on it currently?
See, I feel the minute we start looking at the teacher as a deficit person, with gaps to be filled, whether you do it by cascade training or you do it by technology, it won't work.
Right.
Because the teacher may have gaps like everybody has. But the teacher also has a strong professional identity from which her work proceeds.
Right.
And we have to just respect that professional identity and work with that. And if technology can respond to that, then I feel it delivers. If technology can strengthen professional identity and camaraderie of teachers, the communicative aspect of technology, not the content delivery aspect of technology, then I feel it holds potential. Because teaching is not applied science. It's not like you learn some stuff and you apply it in the classroom. It flows out of your beliefs and your practices. And I think that's really what we have to strengthen.
So there is one really critical question which I wanted to catch the thread. I'm going to come back to it before I go to Neha ma'am. Neha ma'am, NEP में भी बहुत बोला गया है, like there's बहुत सारी चीज़ें हैं. Obviously foundational literacy numeracy takes the center stage, निपुण भारत है वगैरह. But NEP में ये भी बोला गया है कि उसके अलावा भी बहुत सारे बच्चों को आगे बढ़ना चाहिए, future ready skills हो या new age skills. इसके अलावा भी तो आपने खुद, you were the coordinator for the Pragat Shekshnik Maharashtra initiative and policy intervention. टीचर ट्रेनिंग तो भरपूर सेंटर से आता है, स्टेट से आता है वगैरह. सो और क्या करना चाहिए और क्या ही कर सकते हैं? बिकॉज आई थिंक वन ऑफ द बिग थिंग्स महाराष्ट्र में टीचर्स को अगर बोले फिर से ट्रेनिंग आ गया तो द सेइंग इज पुन्हा आला प्रशिक्षण, म्हणजे इट्स कम अगेन. सो टीचर्स आर नॉट ऑल्सो एंजॉइंग की ट्रेनिंग्स कमिंग मोर एंड मोर. तो ट्रेनिंग के अलावा और क्या है? बिकॉज अभी जो बात हुई थी वो FLN के बियॉन्ड इवन वैल्यू सिस्टम की. आई थिंक व्हाट पद्मा मैम आल्सो सेइंग कि हाउ डू यू गेट द बिहेवियरल चेंज विद इन द टीचर टू टेक ओनरशिप. तो ये सारी चीज़ें आप कैसे देखते हो एज अ टीचर एजुकेटर?
इस पे दो बातें हैं. एक तो ट्रेनिंग बहुत ज़्यादा होने से भी टीचर्स को अच्छा नहीं लगता है, लेकिन ट्रेनिंग में बदलाव लाने का प्रयास किया गया 23-24 में. और इसमें जो फ्यूचरिस्टिक एजुकेशन है इस पे ही ट्रेनिंग लिया गया फेस टू फेस, और मोर देन 3,25,000 टीचर्स इसमें ट्रेन हुए. और इसका पूरा पैटर्न कैसे था कि हर एक बच्चा खुद सीख सकता है और उसके लिए कुछ चैलेंज उसको डिस्प्ले करना है सीखने का, और वो करने से उसकी लर्निंग स्पीड भी बढ़ जाती है. उसके लिए लर्निंग इनिशिएटिव्स क्या लेने चाहिए? पीयर लर्निंग है, ग्रुप लर्निंग है, मॉनिटरियल लर्निंग है. तो लर्निंग पे फोकस करना, ये तरीके से ये ट्रेनिंग लिया गया और काफ़ी सारे चीज़ें हो रही है अभी. तो वी आर पॉजिटिव ऑन दैट नोट. अदर देन दैट CPD में महाराष्ट्र में तो इतने सारे इनिशिएटिव्स हुए हैं. जैसे अलग अलग टीचर के ग्रुप्स है, एक्टिव टीचर फोरम है, टू कोट फ्यू, एक्टिव टीचर फोरम है, एक्टिव टीचर महाराष्ट्र है, या वेद ग्रुप है. टीचर्स ने ऐसे कुछ ग्रुप्स बना दिए हैं जिसको हम लोग PLC कह सकते हैं, कि प्रोफेशनल लर्निंग कम्युनिटी अपनी अपनी बना के खुद के प्रोफेशनल डेवलपमेंट के लिए ओनरशिप लेना, ये एक शुरुआत हुई है. ये एक अच्छी बात मुझे लगती है. अदर देन दैट, जैसे कुमठे बीट में एक वहाँ के एक्सटेंशन ऑफिसर ने अच्छा काम किया कंस्ट्रक्टिविज़म पे. तो अक्रॉस महाराष्ट्र अलग अलग डिस्ट्रिक्ट से लोग वहाँ जाके देख रहे थे कि क्या बदलाव लेके आए, और वो रिप्लिकेट हो रहा था. तो ऐसे भी चीज़ें हुई. कई टीचर्स ऐसे हैं कि उन्होंने खुद के पॉकेट से सिंगापुर विज़िट किया और वो खुद से सीखना चाह रहे हैं कि अलग कंट्रीज़ में क्या हो रहा है. कई टीचर्स ऐसे हैं वर्चुअली अलग अलग कंट्रीज़ के पास पहुँच रहे. तो ये चीज़ें हैं. तो जो अभी NEP बोल रही है कि 50 आवर्स का CPD का अपॉर्चुनिटी हर एक टीचर और HM को हर साल मिलना चाहिए, उसके लिए एक तो नीड एनालिसिस होने की ज़रूरत है कि क्या टीचर्स को चाहिए। जैसे अभी सुबीर जी बोले कि सबके लिए हम एक जैसा देते हैं, कि ये एलिमेंट्री टीचर्स के लिए है, ये सेकेंडरी टीचर्स के लिए है, ये आंगनवाड़ी वर्कर्स के लिए है, सबके लिए एक जैसा ट्रेनिंग, आंगनवाड़ी वर्कर सभी के लिए एक जैसा ट्रेनिंग। तो ये जो है ये बदलवाने की ज़रूरत है कि जिसको जो नीड है उसके अकॉर्डिंगली उसको इम्प्रूव करने की फैसिलिटी मिलने के लिए कैफेटेरिया अप्रोच चाहिए, और उसमें अलग अलग कोर्सेस डिज़ाइन करके वो उन्होंने ऑप्ट करना चाहिए कि मुझे इसमें आगे इम्प्रूव करना है। फॉर एग्जांपल एक लैंग्वेज टीचर है और अभी मल्टीलिंग्वलिज्म पे पॉलिसी काफ़ी स्ट्रेस कर रही है, बहुत सारी लैंग्वेजेस आने चाहिए बच्चों को, तो पहले टीचर को भी वो सीखने की ज़रूरत है। हर एक लैंग्वेज सिखाने के लिए हर एक अलग टीचर हम लोग नहीं दे पाते हैं, तो इसके लिए भी टेक्नोलॉजी का भी यूज़ कर रहे हैं। तो अलग अलग ये है सीपीडी के अपॉर्चुनिटीज़ कि जैसे टेक्नोलॉजी यूज़ कर सकते हैं, कहीं एक्सपोजर विजिट हो सकती है, कहीं वर्कशॉप्स है, कॉन्फ्रेंस है, पेपर रीडिंग है, रिसर्च पेपर करना है, या खुद होके उन्होंने कुछ शब्दकोश तैयार किया। अभी वो ये जो है झाड़ा पत्ती जो बोलते हैं इधर गढ़चिरौली में जो है वो झाड़ी बोली में 2 टीचर्स ने अभी एक शब्दकोश तैयार किया गया है। तो ये भी एक सीपीडी अपॉर्चुनिटी में ही काउंट करना चाहिए। 50 आवर्स में वो अलग से क्या कर रहे हैं, तो उनके जो इनोवेशंस है टीचर्स जो कर रहे हैं उसको प्लेटफॉर्म देना ये बहुत ज़रूरी बात है। और ये महाराष्ट्र में 1-2 एग्जांपल्स मैं कोट करना चाहूँगी अगर है समय तो, जैसे शिक्षणाची वारी यानी एजुकेशनल एक्सपो या लर्न विथ फन, ये 2 इनिशिएटिव्स ऐसे एग्जांपल्स बोल के मैं आपको दे सकती हूँ कि जो कई नूक एंड कॉर्नर में काम करने वाला टीचर है वो अच्छा अगर मैथ्स पढ़ा रहा है और उसके पूरे के पूरे बच्चे सीख रहे हैं, तो वो क्यों सीख रहे हैं और उसने क्या अलग से किया है, ये डिस्प्ले करने के लिए ये एजुकेशनल एक्सपो हर साल लिया जाता है महाराष्ट्र में। और पहले ये स्टेट लेवल पे लिया गया, बाद में वो इतने टीचर्स अच्छे काम कर रहे हैं और गवर्नमेंट स्कूल्स में भी अच्छे काम कर रहे हैं। ये देखने के बाद फिर अलग अलग 8 एजुकेशनल रीजन्स में भी ये करना शुरू किया है। दूसरा प्रोग्राम जो है वो लर्न विथ फन, जो कोविड के समय में हम लोगों ने किया टीचर्स के साथ। तो ये इंटीग्रेटेड अप्रोच में हमें कैसे सीखना है और अलग अलग सीखने के अपॉर्चुनिटीज़ हम कैसे क्रिएट कर सकते हैं। तो इसके लिए एक भी पैसा गवर्नमेंट का ना खर्च करते हुए गढ़चिरौली का भी टीचर उसमें इन्वॉल्व हुआ था और यहाँ पे रत्नागिरी का भी टीचर इन्वॉल्व हुआ था। वो वहाँ पे अच्छा काम क्या कर रहे हैं, तो आर्ट इंटीग्रेटेड लर्निंग से क्या हम सिखा सकते हैं, ये पूरा लर्न विथ फन का एजेंडा था। तो उन टीचर्स को ऐसा लगा कि मैं स्टेट लेवल पे जा रहा हूँ और मुझे सभी टीचर्स यहाँ पे देख रहे हैं। तो ऐसे एक्नॉलेजमेंट जो है टीचर मोटिवेशन रखने के लिए अलग अलग प्लेटफॉर्म्स क्रिएट करने चाहिए और जब उनको इंसेंटिवाइज भी करना चाहिए। ये अलग अलग तरीके हो सकते हैं इसके। थैंक यू सो मच।
So, I mean, one thing जो मैम ने भी बोला, and I think Padma, what you are also sharing was this whole idea of teacher agency and ownership, and this is where it's a slightly uncomfortable topic because people don't talk openly, primarily because the way right now the education system is also structured, let it be from corporates to non-profits to academia, everyone's operating. आपने और सुबीर ने जो बोला था around this teacher agency, you know, I think that's one critical aspect around, because I think the assumption is that teacher agency is there for them to take ownership and drive. Now there is a big chunk of at least practitioners who believe that the teacher agency is only true when the input of the teachers, the way they are selected, recruited, happens in its truest forms. You have roughly about 60-70 lakh teachers inside the government school systems. अभी उनकी किस तरीके से recruitment हुई है कोई जानता नहीं है. So in such a case, how does teacher agency work if you are not able to sort of, if you believe in that? I mean, of course, you first आपने question भी किया था कि if you believe, come at it from a deductive lens saying कि teachers कुछ कर नहीं पाते हैं, but the truth is also you're not able to control the quality of teachers. So the assumption is that the easier thing is to be very scripted, be very prescriptive on what the teachers do versus giving them the agency to decide. Now, my larger question is, and that's how many non-profits are operating in India right now, how do you balance that out? Is it even possible to work at teacher agency at this scale? And this is a question to both of you, because I know both of you are big proponents of this. So, this might be the last question. I think we are almost done with time. Yeah.
So I have never met a teacher who doesn't change and become a good teacher. I have worked with lakhs of teachers, and my lakhs of teachers will vanish in 95 lakh and do keep changing. But
Yeah.
so the fact is, it was pointed in the previous session also, when a teacher has never experienced what you want the teacher to generate for others, how do you expect that teacher to change?
Right.
Our teachers have never experienced what it is to get so engrossed in an activity that you forget your lunch. To have a facilitator who has faith in you, who stands up for you. The term I use is like a teacher has love for children. Does a trainer have love for the trainees? I think they've never experienced it. And then how do you think that they are going to generate that? It's not going to happen.
Right.
So firstly, before coming to any conclusion that they are like this or they are like that, we should look at what we are doing. I found that if you can generate experiential, reflective training, teachers do change. If you follow the sequence in which they learn, things do change. If they have control of the performance indicators, if they see themselves as professionals, if they can take their decisions, if at certain points they are supported, they change. And lastly, once they enjoy, like we had the storytelling session before, it was not joyful learning, it was joyful teaching also. See, the teacher had as much fun as children, right?
Correct.
When teachers taste that, they change. So my thing is that in every time we do scripting, we deprive teachers of all of that. We make them just automatons, and we get very limited results, apart from it being boring and all the rest of it. And I can get you research for any kind. Don't give me evidence about it, because I can get you evidence to show that if you beat children, the measure in mathematics goes up, the results in maths go up. So don't take results at face value. So therefore, I think there is a bigger picture that we need to look at.
Yeah.
And every time we think the teacher is weak, it's a reflection on ourselves that, oh, I don't know how to get this teacher to change. That is what it really is all about.
Yeah, I think I should have mentioned another thing which is working is I think teacher recruitment is improving with much greater consciousness of the problems of corruption.
Right.
And frankly, I don't think scripted lessons is an answer to corruption in recruitment.
Yeah.
Even a scripted lesson can be corrupted if that is what the name of the game is, right? So I don't think we should confuse the solution with the problem.
Yeah.
I think young teachers are very hopeful. And when they find they are not respected in the system, they begin to lose hope and get demotivated. I feel the real problem is not to motivate teachers, it's to figure out what demotivates them and fix the demotivation. And not worry about motivation, I feel. Because the desire to achieve the satisfaction of teaching in classroom, I think once you experience it, you taste it, you enjoy it. And we have seen many teachers experiencing it. I think the training must close the link between learning and practice. And when you have practiced and experienced, then I think the conviction that this is worth doing grows with it. And I feel that's the path on which we have to go and move.
I think inherently...
teacher to want to be a bad teacher.
Correct. And inherently, it's the art of teaching is also very reflective
Yes,
practice.
and I think
right?
all adults enjoy being with children.
Yeah.
I mean, there are very few pathological cases maybe, but apart from that, I think it's very natural to enjoy the satisfaction of succeeding in classroom. So why should we believe that people don't want to succeed?
Right. Okay. So I'm going to end this with like a 10 to 15 second 1-2 liners from each of you. So the thing is, obviously in the audience, a lot of organizations who are working with teachers, who are working with teacher education institutions. So this is like a very cliched thing. If you had like one message for them at this point in time, what would that be? For many, yes, out of the million, what is that one thing, one in a million?
You're handing over your children to teachers. So please do not treat them like employees. They're professionals. Listen to them, support them. And that is the way your children, you and the teachers will succeed.
I think be authentic with teachers. I feel we shouldn't, while we value what they are, we shouldn't be afraid to challenge them when we have disagreements.
Yeah.
And we should be able to have authentic conversations so that we know it's mutually respectful.
मुझे लगता है कि ये टीचर्स जो है ये टीचर्स शुड बिकम फैसिलिटेटर्स फॉर लर्निंग तो इसके लिए कंड्यूसिव एनवायरनमेंट कैसे क्रिएट करना है, इस पे फोकस करने की ज़रूरत है. और वन मोर पॉइंट, टीचर एजुकेटर का स्ट्रेंथनिंग बहुत इम्पॉर्टेंट है, क्योंकि टीचर एजुकेटर का अभी हम लोग सिनेरियो देखेंगे तो महाराष्ट्र में 90% DLED कॉलेजेस आर प्राइवेट, और उनका कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग गवर्नमेंट भी नहीं करती है. और ये बहुत इम्पॉर्टेंट इशू है कि सस्टेनेबल प्लान होना चाहिए टीचर एजुकेटर डेवलपमेंट के लिए. क्योंकि मैडम ने जो कहा कि डाइट से जो टीचर्स बाहर आ रहे हैं वो अच्छे हैं कंपेयर टू अदर्स, लेकिन महाराष्ट्र में 2018 से डाइट की प्री सर्विस ही बंद हुई है. तो ये इशू है कि टीचर एजुकेटर को स्ट्रेंथन करेंगे तो टीचर्स भी अच्छे बनेंगे. थैंक यू सो मच.
Thank you. So a lot more needs to be done. Obviously, again, as the previous topic, we are just scratching the surface. The idea is to get different perspectives, but over the 2 days, you will get opportunities to speak to, of course, Padma, Subir, and Neha madam are here. But the idea is also for the audience to keep talking about some of these issues whenever we are catching up on it. With that, thank you, all of you, so very, very much for engaging in these discussions. Really an honor to have all of you.